First contact. The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the collective breathing of 1,000 different species. Ambassador of the Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes as he approached the central podium, his scaled features gleaming under the artificial starlight that illuminated the council chamber. Today was supposed to be a routine session, discussing trade routes and mining rights in the outer spiral arms. Honored members of the council, began, his voice amplified by the chamber's advanced translation systems. I bring disturbing news from Sector 7 Alpha. Our long-range scouts have discovered something unprecedented. A ripple of interest passed through the assembled delegates. The Galactic Council had governed this corner of the galaxy for over 50,000 standard cycles. Very little surprised them anymore. The universe had been mapped and organized. Every species capable of faster-than-light travel had been contacted and integrated into the Council's vast bureaucratic machine. High Counselor, a being that resembled a floating jellyfish made of pure energy, pulsed with curiosity. What could possibly be unprecedented, Ambassador? We have protocols for every conceivable situation. His throat sac inflated nervously. We have discovered a species that has achieved faster-than-light travel without our knowledge. They call themselves humans. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several delegates rose from their seats, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sounds, lights, and pheromone releases. It had been over 10,000 cycles since a new spacefaring species had been discovered. Impossible, declared Representative Al, whose crystalline form chimed with disbelief. Our monitoring systems cover every inhabited world in this galaxy. No species develops FTL without our detection. That's what we believed, continued, his voice cutting through the noise. But these humans, they're different. They developed their technology in complete isolation on a world they call Earth, located in what they term the Sol system. Our scouts have been observing them for several rotations now. High Counselor's energy form brightened with authority, and the chamber gradually quieted. What is their technological level? Are they a threat to Council's stability? Consulted his datapad, though he had memorized every detail of the report. Their technology is crude by our standards, yet remarkably effective. They use chemical propulsion supplemented by what they call jump drives, a primitive but functional form of space folding. What's more concerning is their rapid expansion rate. Expansion rate? The question came from the Hive Queen H, whose features clicked with agitation. How rapid? In just 200 of their standard years, they have established colonies on 17 worlds and constructed mining operations on 43 asteroids and moons. They show no signs of slowing down. This time, the chamber didn't just murmur, it roared. Species that had taken to expand beyond their home systems were witnessing a civilization that accomplished the same feat in what amounted to an galactic. Ambassador N of the Pacifist Coalition raised a tentacle. What is their disposition toward other species? Have they encountered any of our member civilizations? That's where it becomes complicated, replied. They've had limited contact with some of our outer rim trading posts. Initial reports suggest they are aggressive in their negotiations, but not overtly hostile. However, their military buildup is extraordinary. Military buildup, High Counselor pulsed with alarm. His datapad projected a holographic display above the chamber. Images of human spacecraft appeared sleek, angular vessels bristling with weapon systems. They maintain what they call defense fleets around every colony. Each fleet consists of dozens of warships. Their total military capacity rivals that of established council members. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure thought given temporary form, communicated directly into every mind present. This is most unusual. Typically, new spacefaring species focus on exploration and resource gathering. Military expansion suggests an aggressive nature or significant external threats. What external threats could they possibly face? Wondered Ambassador Oss of the Trading Guild. That sector has been peaceful for. Its expression grew troubled. According to our psychological profiles, humans have a unique evolutionary background. There was remarkably hostile, filled with predators, natural disasters, and resource scarcity. They evolved not just as hunters, but as persistent hunters. Their entire species carries what their scientists call a survival instinct that far exceeds anything we've encountered. Survival instinct? The crystalline collective's representative chimed in confusion. All species have survival instincts. Not like this, insisted. Humans don't just fight for survival, they prepare for every conceivable threat, even those that haven't materialized. They have contingency plans for asteroid impacts, solar flares, alien invasions, artificial intelligence rebellions, and scenarios we don't even have names for. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this information. Most galactic civilizations achieved through cooperation and peaceful development. The idea of a species that militarized by default was deeply unsettling. High Counselor's form dimmed thoughtfully. What do you recommend, Ambassador? Standard first contact protocols, replied. We should establish formal diplomatic relations, assess their potential for council membership, and guide their development according to established galactic law. And if they refuse guidance? Asked the Hive Queen. His throat sac inflated again, a sign of deep anxiety among his species. Our analysts believe that would be unlikely. Humans seem to respond positively to beneficial trade arrangements and technological exchanges. They're isolationist by nature, but not irrationally so. The ethereal collective's representative interjected again. What are their resource requirements? Competitive species often conflict over mining rights and territory. Surprisingly modest, admitted. They seem more interested in establishing self-sufficient colonies than strip mining worlds. Each human settlement focuses on long-term sustainability rather than maximum resource extraction. This sparked interest from the trading guild representative. Sustainable development? That's almost unheard of among younger civilizations. Indeed, continued, they appear to have learned from the ecological devastation of there. Every human colony incorporates advanced recycling systems, renewable energy sources, and careful environmental management. Ambassador N's tentacles writhed with approval. This suggests they might be compatible with Council environmental protocols. There's more, said, bringing up another holographic display. Their societal structure is fascinatingly complex. They maintain hundreds of different governmental systems across their colonies, yet coordinate effectively when facing external challenges. The display showed human settlements ranging from democratic republics to corporate oligarchies to scientific communes. Yet when the images shifted to show their response to a recent asteroid threat, every human colony had contributed resources and personnel to the deflection effort. High Counselor pulsed with growing interest. Unity through diversity, that's a sophisticated approach for such a young civilization. Their adaptability is remarkable, agreed. When they encounter a new environment, they don't terraform it to match their preferences, they adapt their settlements to work with local conditions. It's economically efficient and environmentally responsible. The chamber was warming to these revelations. A species that combined rapid expansion with environmental responsibility and adaptive governance sounded like ideal council material. What about their scientific capabilities? Inquired Dr. On of the academic consortium, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Smiled or performed the equivalent, which involved a slight inflation of his throat sac. Perhaps their most impressive trait. They've independently developed technologies we consider advanced, often using completely different theoretical frameworks. Their mathematical approaches to faster-than-light physics are so unique that our scientists are struggling to understand them. Different frameworks? Dr. On's excitement was visible in her rapid eye movements. They don't use quantum crystalline matrices for space folding like we do. Instead, they manipulate what they call dark energy directly. It's less efficient but far more versatile. They can make jumps we would consider impossible. The academic consortium representative was practically vibrating with excitement. We must establish scientific exchange protocols immediately. Patience, High Counselor advised. We must follow proper procedures. Ambassador, I want you to prepare a formal first contact delegation. We'll follow standard protocols, approach their government, introduce ourselves, and begin the integration process. About that, said hesitantly, there's one more complication. Humans don't have a single government. They maintain something they call the Colonial Congress for coordination, but each settlement governs itself independently. This caused another stir in the chamber. Most successful spacefaring species eventually unified under a single governmental structure. The complexity of maintaining multiple governments across interstellar distances was considered impractical. How do they maintain coordination? Wondered the crystalline collective's representative. Advanced communication networks and what they call constitutional principles, core laws that all human settlements agree to follow regardless of local governance. It's remarkably flexible. The ethereal collective added, flexibility in governance, adaptation in environment, innovation in science. These humans sound almost too good to be true. That's what concerns me, admitted. Species this capable usually have some significant drawback, are still analyzing their psychological profiles, looking for potential compatibility issues. High Counselor's form brightened with decision. Regardless, they represent a potential valuable addition to the Council. Ambassador, you will lead the first contact delegation. Prepare your finest diplomatic team and approach their colonial congress within the next cycle. What should our initial offer include? Asked, already mentally composing the delegation roster. Standard package, the High Counselor replied. Advanced technologies, protected trade status, cultural exchange programs, and eventual council membership for qualified colonies. Ambassador N raised a tentacle again. Should we mention the protection aspect? Young species often appreciate knowing they'll be safe from potential threats. Excellent point, agreed. Emphasize the security benefits of council membership. No council world has been successfully invaded in over 30,000 cycles. Bode formally, it will be done, High Counselor. I estimate contact can be established within 10 standard days. As the ambassador departed to prepare his delegation, the chamber buzzed with excitement. The discovery of a new spacefaring species was always cause for celebration, but these humans sounded particularly promising. Advanced, adaptable, and environmentally responsible, they seemed perfect for council integration. High Counselor privately wondered if it could really be that simple. In her experience, species that seemed too perfect usually had hidden complications. But the Council's track record spoke for itself. In 50,000 years, they had successfully integrated over 10,000 species into a peaceful, prosperous galactic civilization. Whatever surprises these humans might present, the Council was prepared to handle them. After all, they were the most advanced and experienced galactic government in known space. What could possibly go wrong with one more species integration? The answer to that question would reshape everything they thought they knew about diplomacy, warfare, and the nature of galactic civilization itself. But for now, in the peaceful chambers of the Galactic Council, confidence reigned supreme. Ambassador's flagship, the Diplomatic Harmony, departed the Council 3 days later, its course set for a small yellow star that the humans called Sol. Aboard were 50 of the galaxy's finest diplomats, cultural specialists, and trade negotiators. They expected to return with the preliminary agreements for humanity's integration into galactic civilization. Instead, they were about to discover that some species don't integrate. They negotiate from a position of strength that the Council had never encountered before. The journey to Earth would take 7 standard days at diplomatic cruising speed. 7 days for the Council's finest minds to prepare their presentation, polish their offers, and finalize their integration protocols. 7 days that would prove to be woefully inadequate for what they were about to encounter in the Sol system. The reception. The Diplomatic Harmony dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, exactly as protocol demanded. Ambassador expected to spend several hours navigating to Earth while broadcasting standard first contact messages. Instead, his ship was immediately surrounded by 30 human vessels that seemed to materialize from empty space. Unknown vessel, came the crisp communication from the lead human ship, translated by the Council's universal language matrix. You have entered restricted space. State your identity and purpose immediately. His diplomat instincts kicked in smoothly. He had handled thousands of first contact situations. Greetings. I am Ambassador of the Galactic Council, representing 50,000 years of peaceful galactic civilization. We come in friendship to welcome humanity to the galactic community. The response was not what he expected. Galactic Council. The human voice carried a note of polite skepticism. We have no records of any galactic government. Please provide verification of your authority and maintain your current position while we confirm your claims. Exchanged glances with his staff. Most species were overwhelmed by first contact with the Council. The sheer scope of galactic civilization usually left new species speechless with awe. These humans sounded like they were processing a routine shipping manifest. "Of course," replied diplomatically. "We're transmitting our full credentials now, along with historical records of Council civilization and documentation of our authority to negotiate on behalf of our member species." The human fleet maintained their positions, close enough to respond to any threat, but not so close as to be overtly aggressive. Their ships were smaller than the diplomatic harmony, but there were many of them, and their weapon signatures were unmistakable. Doctor, the Councils, leaned over to whisper in his ear. "Ambassador, these vessels, they're not just armed for defense. These are military warships configured for system defense." "I can see that," murmured back, "but many species maintain defense fleets. It's not unusual." "No, sir, you don't understand. I'm reading weapon signatures that suggest these ships could damage our vessel. That's not standard for a species this young." Before could respond, the human communication channel reopened. "Ambassador, we've your credentials and historical records. The Colonial Congress has agreed to receive your delegation. However, there are some procedures we need to follow first." Procedures? This was new. Usually, young species were eager to skip formalities and learn about galactic civilization. "Yes, sir. Earth maintains strict biosecurity protocols. Your delegation will need to undergo decontamination and biological scanning before being permitted on the planet's surface. Additionally, all recording and communication equipment will be subject to security review." His throat sac inflated with surprise. "Security review? Ambassador, I assure you that the Council has no hostile intentions. These precautions seem unnecessary." The human voice remained politely firm. "I'm sure you understand, Ambassador. We've survived this long by being careful. The procedures are non-negotiable." Doctor was scanning furiously at his instruments. "Ambassador," he whispered urgently, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from all over this system. These humans have defensive installations on every major planet and moon." Looked at his tactical display with growing amazement. The humans hadn't just colonized 17 worlds, they had fortified them. Every settlement showed signs of orbital defense platforms, surface-to-space weapons, and what appeared to be planetary shield generators. "Very well," replied to the humans. "We will comply with your security procedures. Please provide docking instructions." "Negative, Ambassador. You'll be met by our diplomatic transport vessel Constitution. Your delegation can transfer there for transport to Earth. Your ship will remain in this location under escort." This was definitely not standard procedure. Most species invited Council ships directly to there as a gesture of trust and honor. These humans were treating the Council delegation like potential threats. "If I may ask," said carefully, "what specific threats are these security measures designed to address?" The human response was immediate and matter-of-fact. "Biological warfare, technological espionage, cultural contamination, and hostile takeover. Standard threats that any advanced civilization might pose." The Council delegation exchanged shocked glances. They were used to being welcomed as saviors and teachers. The idea that anyone would consider them potential invaders was almost incomprehensible. The Human Transport Constitution docked with the Diplomatic Harmony 2 hours later. It was clearly a military vessel adapted for diplomatic use, heavily shielded, well-armed, and operated by a crew that moved with military precision. Captain Sarah, the transport commander, welcomed the Council delegation aboard with professional courtesy. She was a compact woman with intelligent eyes and an air of quiet confidence that immediately impressed. "Welcome aboard the Constitution, Ambassador," she said, offering the traditional Council greeting gesture perfectly. "I trust your journey here was pleasant." "You know our customs?" was surprised. Most species required extensive cultural briefings before they could interact appropriately with Council members. "We've been monitoring Council communications and cultural databases for several months," Captain replied casually. "We like to understand who we're dealing with." Doctor nearly dropped his scanner. "Monitoring our communications? How is that possible?" Captain smiled politely. "We have good communications technology, Doctor. Your diplomatic frequencies aren't particularly well encrypted." This sent shock waves through the Council delegation. Their communication systems were supposedly impenetrable to anyone without council-level technology. Yet these humans spoke of monitoring them as if it were routine. During the journey to Earth, Captain provided a running commentary on human space installations. She pointed out the defense platforms around Jupiter, the mining operations in the asteroid belt, and the research stations near Venus with obvious pride. "Impressive infrastructure for such a young civilization," commented diplomatically. "We've been busy," Captain agreed. "When you're starting from scratch, you have to build everything at once. Defense, industry, research, agriculture, it's a lot to coordinate." "Most species focus on one area at a time," Doctor observed. "Sequential development is more efficient." Captain's expression grew thoughtful. "That assumes you have time for sequential development. We prefer redundant systems and rapid expansion. It served us well so far." As Earth grew larger in the Council delegation gasped collectively. The planet was surrounded by a massive orbital infrastructure. Space elevators, manufacturing platforms, defensive installations, and civilian habitats created a glittering shell around the blue world. "How many people live in orbit?" asked trade specialist Al. "About 2 billion, Captain replied casually. "Earth's surface population is around 12 billion, and we have another 6 billion spread across the colonial worlds. We're growing pretty fast." The numbers were staggering. Most species maintained smaller populations even after of expansion. Humans had reached numbers that rivaled ancient galactic civilizations in just a few centuries. The Constitution docked at New Geneva Station, humanity's primary diplomatic facility. As the Council delegation disembarked, they were met by an impressive array of human officials, scientists, and military officers. President of the Colonial Congress stepped forward to greet them personally. She was an older woman with silver hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected billions of lives. "Ambassador," she said warmly, "welcome to humanity's home system. We're honored by your visit." "The honor is ours, Madam President," replied, offering the formal greeting bow. "The Council is pleased to finally make contact with your remarkable civilization." As they walked toward the diplomatic conference room, President gestured toward the massive viewport showing Earth below. "I understand this is your first visit to a human world. What do you think of our little corner of the galaxy?" Chose his words carefully. "It's quite impressive. We rarely see such rapid development from a newly spacefaring species." "Newly spacefaring," President smiled slightly. "Ambassador, we've been traveling between stars for almost 300 years. We may be new to you, but we're not exactly new to space." The conference room was elegant but clearly functional. The walls displayed real-time feeds from human colonies across known space, creating an impressive demonstration of their civilization's scope. As the delegations took their seats, noticed that every human representative carried portable communication devices that seemed to keep them in constant contact with their various governments. "Before we begin formal discussions," President said, "I'd like to address something that might be a misunderstanding. You mentioned representing 50,000 years of galactic civilization, but our records don't show any evidence of large-scale galactic government during that." Doctor leaned forward eagerly. "What do your records show?" "Scattered settlements, independent civilizations, some small confederations and trading alliances," President replied. "Nothing approaching the scope of government you're describing." "That's because most species don't achieve the observational capabilities necessary to detect Council activities until they're ready for integration," explained patiently. "We maintain a careful balance of influence without direct interference." "Ah," President nodded thoughtfully. "A hidden empire, that's an interesting approach to governance." The term hidden empire sent uncomfortable ripples through the Council delegation. They preferred to think of themselves as benevolent guides rather than a covert government. "We prefer protective oversight," corrected gently. "The Council has maintained galactic peace and stability by preventing conflicts before they start. By controlling access to advanced technology and dictating development patterns?" The question came from General Harrison, humanity's military representative. His tone was polite but pointed. "By providing guidance and support to emerging civilizations," replied, beginning to feel that this conversation wasn't going as planned. President consulted her notes. According to our analysis of your historical records, species that join the Council surrender significant portions of their sovereignty in exchange for technology and protection. Is that accurate? They gain access to a galactic community, emphasized. Shared resources, common defense, cultural exchange, the benefits far outweigh any limitations. What sort of limitations? General asked directly. Was beginning to sweat. This was supposed to be a welcoming ceremony, not an interrogation. Standard restrictions on military development, expansion patterns, resource exploitation, common sense measures to prevent conflicts. I see, President made another note, and species that decline to join the Council. Very few do, replied honestly. The benefits of membership are obvious to most civilizations. But those that do decline. There was a long pause. They're free to remain independent, of course, though they often find themselves isolated from galactic commerce and development opportunities. The human delegation exchanged glances that clearly communicated some kind of shared understanding. It was like watching a pack of predators silently coordinating a hunt. Ambassador, President said finally, I think there may be some fundamental misunderstandings here about humanity's situation and intentions. Perhaps it would be helpful if we showed you exactly who you're dealing with. She gestured to her aide, who activated the wall displays. The feeds from human colonies were replaced by tactical readouts, industrial statistics, and military capabilities assessments. Humanity currently maintains defensive fleets around 47 star systems, President began. Our combined military forces include over 8,000 warships, ranging from patrol vessels to dreadnought-class battleships. The numbers kept climbing as she continued. Our industrial base produces approximately 200 new spacecraft per month, along with enough weapons and equipment to outfit a major invasion force. Our research and development programs are working on technologies that our scientists assure me would surprise even advanced galactic civilizations. His throat sac was inflating so rapidly that Doctor was beginning to worry about his health. Our population growth rate remains steady at approximately 3% annually, President continued. Current projections suggest we'll reach 30 billion total population within 50 years, with expansion to over 100 star systems. But that's, struggled to find words, that's larger than most Council member species achieve after of development. Yes, President agreed calmly. We're aware that we develop somewhat faster than average. General leaned forward. Ambassador, I think what President is trying to explain is that humanity doesn't require protection from external threats. We've grown quite capable of protecting ourselves. Furthermore, President added, our analysis of Council member species suggests that joining your organization would actually slow our development considerably. The restrictions you mentioned would prevent us from achieving our full potential. Felt the entire first contact situation spinning out of control. But the technologies we could share faster-than-light communications, matter replication, quantum computing, these could advance your civilization by centuries. Dr. Sarah, humanities science representative, spoke up for the first time. Ambassador, we've analyzed the technological specifications included in your introduction package. While some of your techniques are elegant, we've actually developed superior alternatives in several areas. Superior alternatives? Doctor squeaked. Our quantum dark energy interface drives are more versatile than your crystalline matrix systems, Doctor explained. Our neural network computing architecture is more powerful than quantum processing for most applications, and our biological regeneration techniques are significantly more advanced than anything in your medical databases. The Council delegation sat in stunned silence. In 50,000 years, they had never encountered a species that claimed technological superiority in any area, much less multiple areas. President allowed the silence to stretch before continuing. So you see, Ambassador, while we appreciate the Council's offer, humanity must respectfully decline membership at this time. Decline, his voice cracked slightly. We're not closing the door to future cooperation, President clarified. We'd be interested in establishing trade relationships, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense agreements. But we're not interested in surrendering our independence to join your government. But struggled to process this unprecedented rejection. No species has ever declined council membership after understanding the full benefits package. General smiled slightly. I guess that makes us the first. As the formal session concluded, President escorted the council delegation back to their transport. I hope you understand, Ambassador, that this isn't personal. We respect what the council has accomplished. We're just not ready to give up our freedom to get it. During the return journey to their ship, the council delegation sat in shell-shocked silence. They had come to welcome a primitive species to galactic civilization and instead discovered an advanced civilization that didn't want or need their help. As the Constitution docked with the diplomatic harmony, Captain offered some final words. Ambassador, I hope the Council won't take our decision as hostile. Humanity has no interest in challenging your authority or disrupting your government. We just want to be left alone to develop in our own way. Of course, replied automatically. The Council always respects the sovereignty of independent species. But as his ship departed the Sol system, escorted politely but firmly to the edge of human space, couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had just changed in the galactic balance of power. For 50,000 years, the Council had been the undisputed masters of galactic civilization. Every species they encountered either joined willingly or found themselves gently, but inevitably brought into the fold through economic and political pressure. Now, for the first time, they had encountered a species powerful enough to say no and make it stick. The question was, what would the Council do about it? The test. 3 months after ambassadors returned to the Council, the emergency session chambers buzzed with tension unlike anything seen in centuries. The massive crystalline amphitheater that normally hosted routine administrative meetings now contained the most powerful beings in galactic civilization, all gathered to address what was being called the human problem. High Counselor's energy form pulsed with barely contained frustration as she addressed the assembly. In 5,000 years of active expansion, the Council has successfully integrated over 10,000 species. We have ended wars, prevented extinctions, and brought peace to countless worlds. Yet one small species on the galactic rim dares to reject our guidance. The chamber echoed with agreement from hundreds of species representatives. Ambassador stood at the central podium, his scales dimmed with embarrassment as he delivered his final report. Honored Council members, he began, I must emphasize that the humans were not hostile during our negotiations. They were professional, courteous, and open about their reasons for declining membership. However, their capabilities exceed our initial assessments by several orders of magnitude. General of the Council Defense Forces, a massive warrior from the militaristic species, leaned forward in his seat. Capabilities are irrelevant if they lack the will to use them. How many systems do these humans actually control? 47 confirmed star systems with permanent settlements, replied. However, our long-range scouts report evidence of human presence in over 200 systems, including mining operations, research outposts, and what appear to be forward military positions. The number sent ripples of concern through the assembly. The fastest expanding council species had taken to achieve similar territory coverage. Forward military positions, General's forearms flexed unconsciously. That suggests preparation for aggressive expansion. Dr. On of the academic consortium raised several tentacles. Did they provide any explanation for this rapid militarization? Consulted his notes. They claim it's defensive in nature. According to their representatives, humanity has encountered several hostile alien species during their expansion and learned to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Hostile species? High Counselor's form brightened with surprise. There are no hostile species in that sector. We maintain comprehensive peace throughout the galaxy. That's what I told them, replied. But they showed me records of encounters with aggressive civilizations they call the Devourers, the Hive Swarms, and something called the Machine Collective. According to human records, they fought 3 separate interstellar wars in the past century. The chamber erupted in confused chatter. The Council's monitoring systems showed no evidence of major conflicts in human space. How could 3 interstellar wars occur without their knowledge? Dr. On's excitement was visible in her rapid tentacle movements. These records, did you analyze them for authenticity? Our team confirmed they believe their own accounts, admitted. But our sensor networks detected no evidence of the civilizations they described. Fleet Admiral of the Council Space Command, whose cybernetic form gleamed under the chamber's lighting, spoke with mechanical precision. Unknown hostile civilizations operating in Council space represent a potential threat to galactic security. We should investigate these claims immediately. I agree, General declared. If the humans are fighting unknown enemies, we need intelligence about these threats. High Counselor pulsed thoughtfully. More concerning is the implication that our monitoring systems failed to detect 3 interstellar wars. How is that possible? Ambassador N of the Pacifist Coalition floated forward on his mobility platform. Perhaps the humans' isolation allowed them to develop detection avoidance technologies. Some species excel at stealth. Or, suggested Representative Al of the Crystalline Collective, the humans have confused localized conflicts with interstellar wars. Young species often exaggerate threats. His throat sac deflated slightly. I considered that possibility. However, the scale of their military preparations suggests they genuinely believe they face existential threats. The debate continued for hours, with various theories proposed and discarded. Finally, High Counselor called for order. Regardless of the reality of these supposed threats, the humans represent an unprecedented situation. For the first time in our history, a species has rejected Council membership while possessing the capability to resist integration pressure. What do you recommend, High Counselor? Asked Ambassador Oss of the Trading Guild. His form brightened with decision. We will conduct a comprehensive evaluation of human capabilities and intentions. Fleet Admiral will lead a task force to investigate these alleged hostile species. General will assess human military capabilities, and Ambassador will attempt to reopen diplomatic channels. What if they refuse further negotiations? General asked. Then we will consider alternative approaches, replied ominously. The Council has never allowed a species to remain independent indefinitely. There are too many risks to galactic stability. 6 weeks later, Fleet Admiral's task force entered the outer regions of human space aboard the dreadnought Infinite Justice. The massive vessel was accompanied by a full battle group, 30 ships representing the finest military technology in galactic civilization. Admiral, reported Commander Lan from the sensor station, were detecting human vessels at the edge of their territory. They appear to be monitoring our approach. Signal them that we're conducting routine security patrols, Admiral ordered. Inform them we have no hostile intentions toward human space. The response came quickly. Admiral, this is Captain Jennifer of the Human Defense Force vessel Defiant. You are approaching the border of human territory with a battle fleet. Please state your intentions clearly. The directness surprised the Admiral. Most species responded to Council battle groups with deference or fear. These humans sounded like they were addressing equals. Captain, we are investigating reports of unknown hostile civilizations in this region. We request permission to conduct reconnaissance patrols in your territory. There was a pause before Captain responded. Admiral, human space is currently under elevated threat status due to recent devourer incursions. We cannot permit foreign military vessels in our territory without clearance from Colonial Defense Command. Devourer incursions, Admiral exchanged glances with her staff. Captain, our sensors detect no evidence of hostile activity in this region. Because we've been containing them, Captain replied matter-of-factly. Admiral, I strongly recommend you withdraw to a safe distance while we verify your sensor capabilities. The Devourers use stealth technology that most species can't detect. Before the Admiral could respond, alarm klaxons began sounding throughout the Infinite Justice. Commander Land's voice cracked with panic. Admiral, multiple contacts materializing directly off our starboard quarter. Unknown vessel configurations. The main screen lit up with tactical displays showing dozens of alien ships that seemed to emerge from empty space. They were unlike anything in Council databases, organic-looking vessels with biomechanical surfaces that pulsed with malevolent energy. All ships' defensive positions, Admiral ordered. Identify those vessels. Ma'am, they're not responding to standard communication protocols, reported the communications officer. And they're charging weapons. The first enemy salvo struck the Council formation with devastating effect. The alien weapons bypassed their shields entirely, causing massive damage to 3 escorts before the Council ships could return fire. How is this possible? Admiral demanded. Our shields are impenetrable. Captain's voice cut through the chaos. Infinite justice, those are devourer bioplasma weapons. Your energy shields are ineffective against organic weapon systems. Recommend immediate withdrawal while we handle this incursion. Handle it? The Admiral stared at her screens as over 50 alien vessels converged on her battle group. Captain, we're facing impossible odds. Copy that, Admiral. Human reinforcements en route. Estimate contact in 3 minutes. Admiral was about to point out that 3 minutes was far too late when space around the alien fleet suddenly filled with new contacts. Human ships seemed to materialize from nowhere, using stealth technology that made the enemy vessels look clumsy by comparison. The humans attacked with coordinated precision that left the Admiral speechless. Their weapons were different from anything in Council Arsenal's energy systems that adapted in real time to enemy defenses, kinetic weapons that somehow bent space to strike from impossible angles, and defensive systems that turned the aliens' own weapons against them. Within minutes, the alien fleet was in full retreat. The human ships pursued briefly before returning to defensive positions around the battered Council formation. Captain's voice returned to the communication channel. Admiral, what's your status? Do you require medical assistance? Admiral struggled to process what she had witnessed. We have casualties and significant damage, but Captain, how did you defeat them so easily? Easy, Captain sounded amused. Admiral, we've been fighting the Devourers for 26 years. You learn their patterns after a while. Over the following days, as Council engineers worked to repair the infinite justice under human protection, Admiral learned more about humanity's secret war than she wanted to know. The humans had encountered their first alien hostiles just 40 years after achieving interstellar travel. Instead of seeking help or retreating, they had adapted, learned, and grown stronger. The key, explained Colonel Torres, the human military liaison, is accepting that the galaxy isn't as peaceful as your council believes. There are things out here that want to kill or consume everything they encounter. Preparation isn't paranoia, it's survival. Admiral reviewed the tactical records of the engagement on her personal display. Colonel, your weapons technology is remarkably advanced. How did humanity develop such capabilities? Necessity, Torres replied simply. When your children are dying from alien weapons, you find ways to fight back. When your colonies are being overrun by hostile swarms, you develop better defenses. War is a harsh teacher, but an effective one. But your population growth, your expansion rate, how do you maintain such development while fighting continuous wars? Torres smiled grimly. Because losing isn't an option, Admiral. Every human settlement knows it might be the last line of defense for our species. When extinction is the alternative, people find ways to exceed what they thought was possible. As the Infinite Justice prepared to depart human space with its escort of human vessels, Admiral found herself facing an uncomfortable conclusion. The Council had assumed they were dealing with an upstart species that needed guidance. Instead, they had discovered a civilization that had been forged by conflicts the Council couldn't even detect. The humans weren't rejecting Council membership because they were ignorant or primitive. They were declining because they had become something the Council had never encountered, a species that had grown strong in isolation, tested by fire, and emerged as a power that owed nothing to galactic civilization's protective embrace. When Admiral delivered her report to the emergency session 3 weeks later, the silence in the chamber stretched for nearly 10 minutes. The hostile species are real, High Counselor finally asked. Very real, the Admiral confirmed. And they represent a threat to every civilization in the galaxy. The humans have been protecting not just themselves, but us as well, by containing these incursions. General's forearms clenched with frustration. How did our monitoring systems miss an entire category of hostile civilizations? Because they use technologies we've never encountered, Admiral replied. The humans call them biotech and quantum stealth, approaches to science that our species never developed because we never needed them. Dr. On was practically vibrating with excitement. This represents the greatest scientific discovery we must establish research partnerships immediately. That's the problem, Admiral said quietly. The humans aren't interested in partnerships where they're junior members. They've offered to share intelligence about hostile species and coordinate defensive efforts, but they want to be treated as equals, not students. High Counselor pulsed with what could only be described as confusion. Equals? They're a single species with fewer than 200 systems. We represent thousands of species across millions of worlds. Yes, Admiral agreed. But they're the ones who have been keeping us safe from threats we didn't even know existed. That changes the equation considerably. The chamber erupted in heated debate as delegates struggled to process this new reality. For 50,000 years, the Council had been the protectors and teachers of galactic civilization. The idea that they might need protection from someone else was almost incomprehensible. As the arguments raged, Ambassador stood slowly at his podium. "Honored delegates," he said, his voice cutting through the noise, "I believe we need to ask ourselves a fundamental question." The chamber gradually quieted as attention focused on him. "The question," continued, "is whether we're prepared to admit that our model of galactic civilization might be incomplete. For 50,000 years, we've believed that peaceful development under Council guidance was the highest form of civilization. But what if we were wrong? What if there's another way, a harder way that produces stronger results?" "You're suggesting we abandon 50 of successful governance," High Counselor demanded. "I'm suggesting we acknowledge that the galaxy is larger and more dangerous than we realized," replied, "and that perhaps we need to learn from the species that discovered this truth before we did." The debate that followed would reshape galactic politics forever. But as the delegates argued through the night, one question echoed in every mind. If the Council needed humanity more than humanity needed the Council, what did that mean for the future of galactic civilization? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected, and from a direction that no one saw coming.